Hey there friends and folks, today I want to share with you some basics of making your own ear wires. Ear wires by the pair usually cost around 50 cents for a base metal pair at your nearest supply store, but can reach the $10 range if you're getting into ornate precious metal wires. There's so many styles of ear wires. You've got your hooks, your posts, your lever backs, and so on. But if you're just looking to make some form of hook, whether it be simple or more contemporary, it's so simple and easy to make your own. The tools we'll be using today are a pair of our chain nose pliers, a pair of round nose pliers, a pair of wire cutters, an Emery board, a Sharpie, and if you have some Wrap N Tap pliers, sometimes they're called multi-looping pliers, you'll want those as well. I'll be demonstrating how to make each of these styles with the Sharpie method as well as with your multi-looping pliers, so there's some flexibility in there. For your wire of choice, it's a good standard to start with a 22 gauge half-hard wire, but if your lobe piercings are like mine and they've stretched a little bit over the years, you can gauge up to a 20 gauge. I addressed a little bit of this in my Let's Talk About Wire video, but I want to refresh on some specific information here. Everyone's ears and piercings are of course different, but when you first get your lobes pierced, unless you specify wanting to go with a larger gauge, your piercings will most likely fit a 22 gauge. If you're making heavier earrings, or like I mentioned, if your holes have stretched over the years, you can gauge up to a 20, but 22 is a pretty safe bet. I will make most of my earrings with a 22 gauge ear wire, but whenever I vend live shows or markets, I'll always have some 20 gauge wire on hand, because occasionally clientele will want a heavier gauge and I like being able to provide that on the spot. Now if you're buying bare wire in bulk from somewhere like Rio Grande, which is where I get my wire, if you know you'll be using this wire just for ear wires, you'll want to go ahead and purchase half-hard wire. 95% of the time I will always buy dead soft wire, and the other 5% of the time is if I know I'm using it for ear wires. Because when you make your ear wires, you're doing minimal work hardening and you want your wires to hold their shape. If you make your wires with dead soft wire without any work hardening, they'll be so soft and more likely to bend out of shape or even pull open over time. And we don't want that. If all you have on hand is dead soft wire, you'll want to start your process by work hardening your wire a bit just by running it through your fingers for a minute or two. Even if I am starting with half-hard wire, I might even do this a little bit just to make sure it's extra nice and sturdy. And even then, I'll often finish it up by running it through my tumbler. And now that we've got our lovely work-hardened wire, we're ready to start forming our ear wires. So just a quick look at the anatomy, so to speak, of your basic hook. You've got this smaller loop at the bottom that you hook onto your earring, this larger loop up top that goes through your earlobe, and this length of wire coming out the back that probably has a name, but you know, I'm not quite sure what it is. I could have looked it up, but you know what, I did not do that. If this length coming through the back is too short, the earring can more easily slip off from natural movement throughout your day. I actually sell all of my hooks with a pair of these rubber stoppers, and I wear them on my own earrings as well because they're a minimally invasive way of just kind of making sure your earrings are a little extra secure. Because nothing puts a damper on your day like wearing your favorite pair of earrings and getting home at the end of the day and finding out that one has fallen off somewhere never to be seen again. So we're going to start by making these super basic ear wires because they basically require 3 simple motions. You're going to start with a 3-inch segment of wire, and at one end you're going to create a small loop about 2 millimeters in diameter. You don't want to make it too small, otherwise you won't be able to loop your earring on, but you can honestly make this loop as big as you want to complement whatever your design is. Just make sure both loops are the same size. As a point I will always drive home with y'all is that whenever I make anything earring related, I build up my pieces simultaneously, and the same thing goes for ear wires. So I got my 2 segments of wire, both have their first loops, and I've stacked them on top of each other to make sure they're the same size. And then I'm going to hold my Sharpie parallel to the floor and align my 2B ear wires on one side with our loops at the bottom, tails pointed up, loops pointed out. And from here I'm just going to pull my wire tails around the Sharpie. And this is a great way to create even consistent loop sizes. If you want a smaller size, you can downgrade to a crayon or a pen. And if you want a larger loop size, you can use like a chapstick tube or the cork of a wine bottle. Either way, you want to bring your wire all the way around the back until it's maybe a couple millimeters from your original loop. You want to leave space here for your earlobe to fit through without much warping to your ear wire, but looped enough so that your ear wire won't slip off. Remember that this loop where your earring will sit will naturally be pulled directly below where your piercing is on your lobe. Because it's the heaviest part of the earring, so when the bulk of the earring rests at its natural point, you'll want to make sure the wire tail is pointed towards the ground. If it's parallel to the ground or pointed away from the ground, you'll need to loop the tail more to make sure it won't slip off. Now once you've poked and prodded your ear wires to being the same size, you'll actually want to buff down the ends of these wires that will go through your ear. No matter what type of cutter you use to cut your wire, even if it's a full flush cutter, there will be a little bit of an abrasive edge to this end. You can just use a standard nail file or Emery board to buff this down so you have a nice smooth rounded edge on the end of your ear wire. And there you have your very own basic pair of ear wires. I'm going to show you a second variation, one that I actually gravitate towards more because it's a little more secure, and this incorporates a small wire wrap at the base that secures the bulk of your earring so it won't fall loose. For these we'll want to start with a little more length, so we're going to cut two 3.5-inch sections of wire and make sure it's work hardened. Instead of making our small loop at the very end, we're going to create a 90-degree bend about 1.5 inches in from one end, and we're going to loop our shorter end so that tail intersects perpendicularly. I'm now going to do the same looping motion with the second wire just to make sure that they're consistent. And we're essentially going to create a wire wrapped loop, but don't forget to thread your earring on first. You'll go ahead and coil your wrap the same number of times on each side. If the segments aren't even, you can just cut off your little bit of excess. And then directly above those coils, you'll create a 90-degree bend with your remaining wire. From that bend, you'll create your larger loop, and you can once again use your Sharpie, but if you do have these Wrap N Tap pliers, this is a good place to use these. These pliers are great for creating consistent loop sizes. Now a lot of ear wires you'll see curve back out either in a rounded fashion or an angled fashion, and this actually makes it slightly easier to put them on. So you can do that if you wish, and then buff your raw wire ends and you've got your own secured pair of ear wires. You can customize this style as much as you want, and that's one of my favorite parts about making my own ear wires, is that I can customize each pair to match the style of the specific earrings that I'm making them for. You can change up the size of the loops, the angles, and so much more. And as with anything else we're doing, just have fun with it. Thanks so much for tuning in today, friends. I had so much fun doing this video, I might do another ear wire video at some point. But in the meantime, please of course let me know if you have any questions down below. As always, take care and be well.